Okay, everyone hear me all right, okay? Um, okay, so let's look, let's continue on the research process, okay? So once you find your research problem, you could identify the type of knowledge that you need, okay? For example, if you are doing thing about sorbitol and sorbitol production from whatever it is, okay, you probably need to know more about what knowledge you should have, okay, for the sorbitol, sorry, for the sorbitol production. For example, you need to, I mean, in order for you to success doing that research, you need to understand the sorbitol pathway. Maybe you need to know what source, what type of microorganism is producing sorbitol. You probably need to understand like the condition that the microbial produce sorbitol, those type of things. So in doing a research problem, in identifying your research, you need to you will know that what sort of knowledge you have, and then you do a literature review. Literature review is very important because if you don't get enough knowledge, you wouldn't make a good hypothesis. When we talk about hypothesis, okay, let me ask you a little bit more about hypothesis. Okay, you said that you have the assignment about the hypothesis, right? I just wonder what you have for your hypothesis in your research. Anyone can start first. We can start from รัตนาพรก็ได้ เราเข้าใจ hypothesis กันยังไงคะแล้ว hypothesis ของเราคืออะไรใน research ของเรา
อาจารย์
ค่ะ
ให้อธิบายถึง hypothesis ของหนูใช่ไหมคะ
เอาเป็นว่าเราเข้าใจคำว่า hypothesis ยังไงดีกว่า
คือประมาณว่าเป็นผลที่เราคาดหวังที่เราจะได้จากการทดลองค่ะจากงานวิจัยของเรา
ผลที่คาดหวังที่จะได้จากงานวิจัยของเราบรรยพลเราคิดว่ายังไงคะ
ครับอาจารย์
ค่ะคิดว่ายังไงคะ hypothesis คืออะไร
ผมคิดคล้ายๆพี่ตาลครับแต่ว่าเหมือนประมาณว่าเอามีในเรื่องของตัวแปรเข้ามาเกี่ยวข้องนะครับอาจารย์
ยังไงคะมีในเรื่องของตัวแปรเข้ามาเกี่ยวข้อง
หมายถึงว่ากำหนดตัวแปรต้นกับตัวแปรตามแล้วก็ผลที่คาดว่าจะได้จากสิ่งที่เราทำครับอาจารย์
พรศิริล่ะคะพรศินีล่ะคะ
ค่ะอาจารย์
ค่ะ
หนูคิดว่ามันอารมณ์เหมือนว่าความสัมพันธ์ของแนวคิดหรือกับเรากับทฤษฎีอะไรแบบนี้ค่ะกับอาจจะมีงานวิจัยที่เคยทำก่อนหน้านี้แล้วว่าตั้งมาเป็นสมมติฐานประมาณนี้
เซครินทาเราว่าไงคะ
หนูคิดว่าเป็นผลที่คาดว่าจะเกิดขึ้นค่ะจากงานที่เราจะทำ
ผลที่คาดว่าออนองล่ะคะ
คิดว่าเป็นผลที่คาดว่าจะเกิดขึ้นเหมือนกันค่ะเป็นสมมติฐานที่เราตั้งไว้ว่าผลที่จะได้รับจากงานวิจัยของเราคืออะไรเป็นผลที่คาดว่าจะได้รับประมาณนี้
Epic, what about you? What do you think about hypothesis? What really is hypothesis for you?
Hypothesis, I think, is just like you guessing a result of something.
So you think hypothesis is like you guessing the result of the experiment?
Yeah.
ก็คือเราเข้าใจเพื่อนเนาะเพื่อนบอกว่า hypothesis ของเขาก็คือเป็นคาดว่าผลจากการทดลองนะบางทีเราต้อง maybe sometimes we need to identify like what we receive, what we will get from the research, and what we will get from the actual experiment that we do. So basically, when we are talking about hypothesis, okay, let me share screen again. Okay, most of us understand hypothesis, but somehow you should make it clear. Okay, so the hypothesis is more or less involving what you are going to do in your experiment. Okay, for example, if you design your experiment to have for example, varying the temperature for doing something, you have to have some idea in mind that what the result will be like. So if you are varying temperature from, okay, if you culture cells, varying temperature from 25 to 55, and your hypothesis is that it's going to be great. I mean, it's good at it performed well at 37 degrees Celsius. It depends. It means that you have to have some sort of hypothesis, right? The point is that if your hypothesis say that, okay, since this is mesophile and the best temperature will be 37 degrees Celsius, your experimental plan doesn't work because it goes from 25 to 40 something, which is out of range of the mesophile already. So that's why if you do a good literature review, you could make a good hypothesis, and it would give you a good design research design as well. So those three things, okay, those three things on top here are the preparation for you to make a good research design. Your research problem, whether you are clear with that, why are you doing this research, and what it is that you find to be a problem and you want to solve, basically, and do a literature review so that you have an important background knowledge about what you are going to do. Okay, I mean, when we do literature review for our case, mostly we know a basic theory already, but like for a deeper knowledge or theory that involve your research, you need to understand. At least if you want to do something about something, okay, if you want to use microorganism to do something, or you want to work on the genes and things like that, at least you need to understand the pathway of the thing, how things could happen. If your research involves some sort of reaction, you need to understand the chemical reaction that goes behind the thing. Okay, and another important point about literature review is the previous findings. Okay, you wouldn't want to repeat the experiment that other people has already done unless you find something like newer, okay, or they haven't been done before. This is very important as well because it would affect your research design and also how you publish your research. So previous finding is very important. A lot of students are too lazy to find papers that involve your research, okay? So they are not doing a good literature review, and it causes a lot of problem at the end, okay? And making a good literature review will give you a good hypothesis as well, okay? Because making hypothesis is I mean, whether you make a good or bad hypothesis, it depends on your previous knowledge as well. Okay. Like your friend said, we guessing that if we do this experiment, we expect to get this result. How will you expect something if you don't know anything about it? Okay. So guessing, there are two types of guessing, right? Okay. It's guessing. And another thing is what I call educated guessing. So that means that you guess, but you have some knowledge behind. Okay. So that is very important. Now, everything from up top here will go down to your design of the research. Okay. And that is a big part of your research process, because that is when you plan. Okay. It's basically research design is about planning your research. What are you going to do? Are you going to use where you get the money from? How long would it takes to do your research? That sort of stuff. And that's what we are going to talk about in our lecture. Okay. Another big part is the collecting data. When I say collecting data, it essentially means that start doing experiment, hand-on doing experiment, taking samples, okay, analyze the samples so that you get the data, okay. Then after that, you analyze your data. Analyze data doesn't mean analysis, okay. Analysis, you take sample, you measure your cell dry weight, you measure your product concentration, blah, 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 blah. That is about collecting data, because what I said, what I'm talking about data is the number that you get from your analysis. So analytical method has to be done. So you get the data, then you analyze the data. You have all the numbers, then analyze them. Okay, analyze them based on what? Based on your hypothesis to answer your hypothesis, to answer your objective. Okay. And if analyzing the data and you don't feel like that it is correct, okay, don't try to make things correct if it's not correct, okay? After you analyze the data and you don't see that it's good, you probably have to go back and reanalyzing your sample or even repeat your experiment, okay? Okay, but if analyzing the data come out okay, you interpret the data. Okay, interpret the data and then report. Okay, and if the interpretation is not good, you probably have to go back and analyze your data again. And if it still doesn't help, you probably have to go back to doing experiment and or reanalyzing everything again. So basically, most of your time would involve these three steps here: collecting data, analyzing the data, and interpret the data, not yet the report, okay? You see that it feedback and it go into loop until you get a satisfying results, okay? And that's how it goes. And all of these things couldn't be any good if you don't have a good research design, okay? Because you see, you don't decide good research. You do the wrong experiment, you correct the wrong data, and you don't even know whether how are you going to analyzing your data, okay? And I have this here, the feed forward here, that when you design a good experimental data, you know exactly what you are going to do with your data, okay? And it helps a lot in fasten up your research. It will make your research go faster. Okay. So another thing I want to talk about at this point is that a lot of people, they have an idea that, okay, we just do the experiment, okay, do the experiment and just keep doing it so that you get a lot of results. and then you do everything, and then you just analyzing the data at the end. Okay, it's very risky. Okay, it's very risky because you don't know what you have done wrong in what step. So what my suggestion is that when you actually plan your experiment and then you do the experiment, you should have this cycle go all the time. Okay, if you're not interpreting it yet, that's okay, but at least you analyze it. But somehow you have to interpret after you analyzing the data anyway. Okay. So these points are not relevant to our lecture, but I think I need to talk to you. Okay, and of course, analyzing the data will involve a lot of statistics as well. It's a part of what you do. But the important part of everything is the research design. If you design a bad research, everything that you do is probably you're not going to use it because it's not useful at all. Okay. Up to this point, anyone has any question? มีใครอยากจะถามอะไรตรงส่วนไหนนะคะที่อาจารย์อธิบายไปว่าตรงนั้นสำคัญอย่างนั้นตรงนี้สำคัญอย่างนี้แล้วทำไมอย่างนั้นอย่างนี้ถามได้นะคะณตอนนี้มีไหมเอ่ยไม่มีโอเคค่ะโอเคถ้าไม่มีเราไปต่อนะคะถัดมานะคะเป็นเรื่องของภาพรวมของการดีไซน์รีเสิร์ชเนาะจริงๆแล้วเนี่ยในเลคเชอร์ตั้งแต่เลคเชอร์แรกจนมาถึงของอาจารย์จบเลยเนี่ยเป็นภาพรวมของการออกแบบ Okay, I'm switching. Okay, sorry, Epic. Okay, the next slide we'll talk about the overall picture of a research design. So basically, from the start of this subject, you actually involved in research design already. Okay, because when we are thinking about research design, we are thinking two things. Okay, one part is the conceptual design. You design the concept of your research. And another part is technical design. You decide what you are going to do. So what I'm talking about would be the technical design. Okay, but let's see the conceptual design first. Okay, so the conceptual design is the design of your idea. Okay, design of your idea, not design of what you are going to do hand-on. Okay, so you design your idea. That means that you have to think about the objective of your research. Okay, you think about the problem of the research, right? You know the problem of the research. You have enough. You know the problem of your research. You have enough knowledge. You have some hypothesis that involved in your research problem. Then when you actually decide things, you have to think about the objective, what you would do, okay, to answer those problems, to answer those hypotheses. So what the objective, the framework, how expanding your research is going to be. Would it just focus on one point or just focus for many points? So that's the framework. Because sometimes when we are doing, for example, when we are doing the research about ethanol fermentation, there's so many things that we could do. So you have to put the frame on the work that you are going to do. Then you design the research question. Okay. When we talk about question is what is this research is going to answer basically. Okay, then definition of key concept. So basically it's a conceptual design. So if you're looking at your proposal, if you're looking at your thesis proposal, it's the first half of your proposal before the research methodology. Okay, so whatever the title of whatever the section heading is, they're all conceptual design. Okay, for me, conceptual design is important. Like I told you earlier and always, conceptual design is important. You have to be clear of what you are going to do. You have to make sense of your own research. You have, it's just like, think of it like this. I always say that, think of the conceptual design, whatever you put in conceptual design is like you are selling your research, okay? If you cannot, if you are selling something, you have to find a good point. Maybe you have to find a bad point and how you could go around with that. And why would people interested in your research? That is the key point, okay? So if you have that successful, then any other thing, I mean, one thing is if you have a good conceptual design, it will give you a lot more confidence when you are doing your research. You are not going to come back and ask, why am I doing this experiment? And why am I doing this and this and that, okay? I have an example of myself when I was doing my PhD. It's about conceptual design. I mean, it's about a concept of research. What I did in my PhD was producing like a lactic acid starter culture. So I want to culture and produce a lot of lactic acid bacteria, which has a limitation that it can't grow if it produces a lot of lactic acid. So that means that it can't grow well at high sugar concentration. So we have to find another way to draw off the end product lactic acid so that the cells can grow a lot and we can produce a lot of cells. Unfortunately, the technique that I'm using has already been used by other researchers, okay? And it involves lactic acid production, lactic acid fermentation. I struggle for like many months, like 2 or 3 months, just try to answer myself, why am I doing this research? Because other people has already done this, other people has already done the same thing, so many people has done a lot of things and they published it already. What am I doing? What I am doing here, how is it different from other people? Okay, it takes me months before I finally go and talk to my advisors, and I asked him this question. Hey, his name is Wallace. Hey, Wallace, I see that the technique that we are going to use, other people has done it already, and I can't find any difference in my work and their work. And he just answered me one answer, and it just cleared everything up for me. The point is that the technique that I use so that I take away the thing that the cell doesn't like, so that it can grow better. And I have to test whether the cell that I grow has a good activity. While other people's work, they use exactly the same technique, but they don't care about the cells. They care about how much lactic acid they could produce. So even though it's exactly the same thing, but the focal point is different, so it makes it a different research. So that means that if I'm not clear about that conceptual design, every time I do experiment, I will ask myself the same question. And when I have my paper write out, I will also have the same question, and I don't feel confident at all in my work. So you have to, this is the importance of the conceptual design, okay? Even though I'm not teaching conceptual design, I would like to talk about this because it would affect your technical design, okay, as well. Right, so that's about conceptual design. Let's get to the point that we are going to cover really in our lecture, okay, about a technical design. The key topic in technical design are only 3 points, okay? The first point is what research strategies, okay? What research strategies that you are going to be using in your research. What are the research materials? And what are your research planning? Okay, these are 3 key elements when you are doing a technical design of the research. Okay. Next up, what really is a technical research design? So it's a structure or a plan to carry out research. Okay. When you see this word conceptual structure and conceptual design is different thing. Okay, conceptual is what you think inside, but design is what you take it out. So it's a conceptual structure. So our plan to carry out the research. So it's like, what are you going to plan as a concept to do your research? So that is a technical research design wants you to do. Technical research design is also an advanced planning in data collection, measurement, and analysis. Okay, up top here says that, hey, how am I going to do my research? I start off with this experiment. I start and followed by that experiment, followed by that experiment, and then in the same time, I'll do this and this and that. So that's a conceptual structure. What involved also is this, planning in data collection, measurement, and analysis. So it's not the experiment, what experiment that you're going to do, it's how are you planning to collect the data as well? What measurement are you going to make? What analysis is involved? For example, you just can't say, okay, I'm doing this experiment. The first experiment is about varying the temperature, for example. And that's it. It's not like that, okay? It's not finished when you said, okay, I'm doing the varying the temperature. I'll do it in flash. I do it in this media. I'm doing this, blah, 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 blah. You have to think about how are you going to collect data? Whether am I going to collect 1 ml of sample, and what I'm going to do with that sample? What am I going to analyze with that sample? And what method am I going to use to analyze the sample? You have to all think about this, okay, in technical research design. Okay. And also what you have to think about is going back to your objective, okay? When you design a research, you have to think about the research objective, because whatever you are going to do has to answer your objective. Okay, so you set out the objective, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You probably have at least 5 experiments to answer each of the objective, or maybe you do like 3 experiments to answer 1 objective. That is possible, but the important point is based on your research objective. Whatever you do in your experiment have to answer the objective. Okay. Another thing that you might not be aware at your stage, because you are students, you don't have to be aware a lot of it. Okay. We have to leave another time before we actually could finish this lecture, but let me talk about the last point here first. Okay, you might not think about manpower, time, and money because you are still like a student doing research, right? Maybe what affects you most is the time. Like, I only have 2 years, or I only have 1.5 years doing my research. I have this much work. How am I going to finish everything? So that is the thing that probably occur most to you. But like the manpower and the money is probably out of your question at the moment, because like if you are looking at the big research, you have to think of how many people you have in your hand doing the experiment and how much money you are having. You can see my cats back there, sorry. And how much money, what is the research grant that where are we going to get the money to do the research and that type of stuff. So these are all in the technical research design. Okay. All right. Since this free meeting will be ending in about 8 minutes and we have about 20 minutes to go, maybe I'll ask you to re-enter the room again, okay? And I'll stop sharing and stop this meeting another time. I'm sorry about the interruption. Next time it won't be this, okay? Just only today. Okay, I'll see you in the same link in a bit. Okay, thank you.